Look at this. I got headphones on. I got a mic going. Baby.
If
Huh?
only people could see you now.
Hey, no video. We've gone through this before.
All right,
No
all right,
video.
all right. Welcome to This Commerce Life. This is a podcast aimed at small, medium entrepreneurs focused on commerce. I'm Phil, your host, and Kenny, your co-host, will join us as well. And we're going to talk to you about the world of retail and commerce and how things are changing in the world.
Hey Ryan,
How are you, bud?
I'm good, and you?
I'm hanging in there.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Nice.
All good.
Sounds fine.
All good.
Sounds super fine.
How are you
Got
feeling?
this really
Oh,
well,
that's cool.
ironically, I'm not feeling super hot, but only as well, I haven't been feeling great for 6 days, but
Okay.
ironically went a little downhill the last 5 or 6 hours. But
Oh
I'm
no.
testing every day, and as hard as I'm trying to get Omni, I can't get it.
Are you positive or you're not positive? You're negative.
No, my oldest daughter's got it now. My wife got it on the 17th. My oldest daughter got it on Sunday. I'm trying to get it, but I just
Maybe
You might have
you're
already had
false
it.
negative. Maybe you've already had it.
You might
I think one would assume I probably already have had it based on, the fact
No,
I should have.
you probably should have had it. You don't necessarily have to have it, but you could. You could have got it. I mean, or maybe or like you said, maybe the tester, just showing up the wrong side, right?
Yeah, totally. You just don't know. But all
You
the
don't.
travel I do and Whistler and everything else, like if anybody should have had it, one would have assumed I would have caught it already. But
Yeah.
hey, thank goodness it's the beginning of the end, and my family's, well, everybody I know who's had the Omni so far is, they've skated it pretty easy.
Okay.
I know the same thing. The only ones I know with have had trouble are the anti-vaxxed. I've got one who wasn't vaccinated and not doing well at all.
Oh, interesting.
Like hospital, not well at all.
Yeah. Everybody
Wow.
I know was vaxxed, and they were all like, cold,
Yeah.
Yeah.
sore throat.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. I mean, at least hopefully this is the tail end of it. Hopefully this thing is going to be done pretty soon because we can't do another year of this shit. It's
Guys,
it's enough.
Drain the life out of me as a business leader, literally.
Oh, especially I'm sure for you too because you do so much bloody travel.
Yeah, I'm used
Or
to it.
you
right?
used to.
In 2021, I did. I got to get this right now. Well, in the 1 year circuit of, no, it was 2020, I guess. My God, like that goes to show you, how scary is that?
Yeah.
So one trip in before Expo West would have been. Expo West was the moment where we all, cut shop, and that was it. And Phil, you probably don't know this, but I do about 120,000 air miles a year.
Holy crap.
And I did 2,300 that year. The one flight to
Wow.
Chicago return was the only flight I got on for
Wow.
a year. So that's like a massive change to life. And it sounds like a good
Yeah.
thing, and it mostly is, but it's crazy when your life gets altered so dramatically from 10 years of, your family dynamic, everything going
Yeah.
this way to like all of a sudden you're just like, hey,
Now the family's like, who are you and why are you here?
Why are you here so
Right?
much?
Like,
Why don't you go again?
yeah, my family loved me as a picture on the wall and a paycheck. And then all of a sudden they're like, really, this is a lot of you.
Yeah,
Like,
you don't bring
Don't kid
souvenirs
yourself.
anymore. What the hell, man?
That
Like you're
happens
here and
Absolutely.
you order me around and I got souvenirs. This sucks, right? Like
Well, it changes the whole house, right? Because you had the wife home probably with the kids, right? And doing their thing. And all of a sudden, a whole new set of rules comes in.
Yeah.
This guy who was never there is chiming in and chirping in and thinking, who the hell are you, man? Like, go back on a flight. Like, get the hell out of here.
well,
Mom had it, man. Mom, we were under control without you around.
Yeah.
Totally. And they got to know the real me, right? Which was like, I was way better is the part that,
The guy
came
wasn't
in
there.
halftime, and I'm like, oh, I love you guys. Great to see you. I'm like happy dad. And instead they're like, who's the grump who's like yelling at his team all the time and us?
When he
And-
was traveling, he said yes to everything, right? But
Yeah,
now he's
he
home. It's like, no, who you talking to? What are you looking at? What are you reading? Damn it! Like,
Close the lights, shut the door.
so
I hear
true.
you.
So true.
I hear you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on.
No, we're glad to have you.
No, I'm glad you said
yeah.
yes. I mean, we
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thought it'd be kind of cool to get the different side of the industry because a lot of times we have true like CPG guys on, right? That's a lot
Yeah.
of what we do. Or we'll have different types of leaders, but we've never had anybody sort of in the media side who's come up through the whole channel and done a bunch of stuff and is connected all over the place. So we thought, it might be kind of a cool one to
Oh,
Cool to
super
have on.
complimentary. And the fact that I made it on before number 300 was like, I was really flattered. I was like, this is, you know what?
Top
This is-
200, top 300, baby. Top 300.
Top 300 is like, it feels really good. It feels really good. I was really flattered. I was like, I was a quick yes. I was like, this is
That's
good
awesome.
stuff.
Awesome. Kenny, you want to do an intro?
You know what's funny, Phil?
Yeah.
I think Ryan and I have probably met or talked maybe 4 or 5 times over the years.
Yeah,
I think the first time I met you, if I'm not mistaken, I thought you came into London Drugs
it's true.
and you guys were trying to do something with I think it was Alive still at the time, or
Yeah.
Live magazine, but I can't remember what it was. And as with most in this industry, they try to go through the buyers, and we're the worst ones to go through because you got to go to marketing, right? Because all we're thinking is, okay, I mean, what's this going to cost me? Like, you know, you're not under getting the game. I don't like paying for shit. Like, you're supposed to be coming to me with money, and then, you know, you don't come and ask me for money. I'm a buyer.
You were awesome, Kenny. I do remember it was obviously Richard Pollock who put us together and mutual besties. And I came in and saw you for sure to talk to you about, we just done Sage for Loblaws. And I was like, this is going really well.
That's right.
Can we do something like this for you guys? A freebie, ad supported, but for London Drugs. And right then, you guys had just hired had hired a new, called vice president of marketing, maybe executive vice president, but right up at the top. And you actually said, you know, hold off a few weeks, wait over the holidays or something, and then, you know, let's do an intro after. And you did. And I went and met with the guy. It was really good. It was a really good meeting. It ended up being that just London wasn't quite big enough to, you know, sustain what we needed from like a vendor, blah, blah, blah. But it was a good intro. And then that was it. And I was like, that was when there was a meeting of minds. And I was like, there's another guy in the industry who has tattoos and it's kind of cool. This is like awesome. I love this guy. This is amazing.
Yeah, man, because we were 2 of the few.
Yeah, right? Yeah,
2
exactly.
of the few. Now they all copycatted, but in that time, 2 of the few, baby.
Plus we were like the same age. So
yeah, which is true too.
You are not.
So anyway, we have Brian Benn on, who, see, I'm going to get it all wrong because when I knew you were owner in charge of Alive magazine and a bunch of other publications. And since then you've morphed into, I don't know what the hell you're doing anymore. Like, you've got a whole bunch of things under your belt and you're doing a bunch of things. You're on another podcast, a competing podcast with 3 or 4 other clowns. I've listened to a few episodes. It's kind of funny.
You know, I'm like, you know, it was interesting because when I got this, I finally felt like I made it because that one was self-made. This one was invited. So you're like, I figured I now know the key to getting on a podcast as guest number 267 is you just do your own and make it fat enough that somebody feels sorry for you and invite you on theirs.
Do your own. That's it, man.
You're 200. You'll be 217. So you moved up like.
Holy geez. You picked up 50 spots.
Yeah,
well, I got to go. I'm going to wait until you guys get more desperate.
Listen, you could have you could have cracked the top 200 if you had said yes.
Earlier.
I mean, we talked to you, I think, in September, October. I'm good for you. That'd be awesome. January. I'm looking at Phil thinking.
That's awesome.
Because we were reading email over this in January. Who is this guy?
That's awesome. You know, if you got to fake it until you make it, and I haven't made it, so I just got to keep faking it. Be like,
we thought, holy
I think I
shit,
can spot
man.
you in March 11th. I think it's looking really good.
So funny.
Well, at that point, I figured, okay, if we get Ryan on, man, if we get him on before the turn of the next century, we killed it, buddy. Like, our podcast has hit it because, like, he's putting us off 3 months.
That's awesome. Fantastic, guys.
So anyway, that's the best introduction I can do for you because the rest of it is up to you. Let us know who you are, what you're doing, where you came from. And then I do, honestly, you know what the main purpose, I think, Phil, I just wanted to pick your brains.
Yeah.
Because you're on a cool side, right? You're on a side where you get to see different things than we might. So that's simple as that.
That's exciting, guys. And I love it. So, you know, to roll back to the very beginning, I was, you know, I'm not a very smart guy. I was very lucky. I got a lucky phone call and a company called Teldon had acquired this magazine called Alive. We've been around a long time, but very small. This is 16 years ago. And I was 26 years old. And this fellow phoned me up and he said, "Hey, I got this magazine and it's losing money. And I don't really know, but I hear you're a little whippersnapper. Do you want to come run it?" Short and long story was yes. And so I joined Alive as the president 16 and a half years ago. And as much as it was good timing. That was right around, just so you guys have like a stake of reference. It was like 6 months later that Whole Foods bought Capers. Like that was kind of like that moment in time. So all of a sudden you have this brand Alive. We have a URL, alive.com. We got Alive Academy. And we were just, you know, we're the biggest small magazine you never heard of. And we kind of just rode the wave of health all the way through. And it made me look really good. And then I grew up in the parent company, which was Teldon. So about 4 years later, I took over as executive vice president of the whole company. Then I took over as CEO about a decade ago. And, Teldon was a much more significant business. So that's, it was the biggest commercial printer in the Pacific Northwest. Anytime you get a calendar from somebody who comes from them, they do about 30 million calendars a year.
Okay.
And then we had the publishing division. I was running all three with about 180 employees. And that would have been about 120 million in revenue kind of business, like in that kind of scope. And it was great. And then did that all the way through until, and touching on the ownership that you said there, Kenny, I was a hired gun, so I had no ownership, but then bought in as I moved along. So I ended up with a minority share in the business, which was great. And then a year and a half ago, we ended up selling Alive. And I went with that business exclusively, but was given the rights to continue running Teldon for about another year. And in that process, we actually sold Teldon too. So we basically split the business apart, sold off the pieces. And I find myself, ironically, 16 years later in the exact same seat, president of Alive, 35 employees, really awesome. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah, what I'm passionate about, right? So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's really
that is pretty cool. That is
cool.
Cool.
So I've got, so general business is almost where I've gone now. Like I bought 7 companies, sold 3, gone through a couple bankruptcies and divestitures and helping people with that. Right now I'm actually the chair of the BC chapter of Young Presidents Organization. So that's a big responsibility and a great opportunity. So towards the end of my volunteer time there, and I've done 7 not-for-profit boards. I currently sit on 6 boards for other for-profit enterprises. So a lot of my time just spent in the boardroom and strategy, etc. Yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow.
Wow.
I told you he was a busy guy.
Yeah, busy for sure, but the claim to fame, not very smart. I just sit around and yak all the time like this. So this is like when you guys invited me on, I was so excited. I'm like, I get to do what I do best. I just get to blab on. And
this is why Kenny and I like doing this, right?
This is it. Just the mental capacity.
This is
the 3 are peaking. We're peaking at the same time right now, man.
That's awesome.
And plus, what else would you want to do in life? So you get paid to talk. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, this is fantastic stuff. It's exactly right.
That's a winner chicken dinner, man. That's all good.
And then, I guess from the business side now, from industry and business, I was chair of the Canadian Health Food Association, or vice chair, I should say, for a few years. And Alive is now probably the largest health and wellness publisher in the world. So we do, which doesn't make it very big, but it's, we have 5 magazines, 3 in the US, 2 in Canada. Okay. We do a little bit of education, do a lot of research and consumer insights and stuff. So yeah, we managed to be really lucky. People ask all the time, they're like, how's the publishing business? And I say, it's shit. Thank goodness we're not a publisher. We're a natural health company. And of course, it's a bit of a lie. It's a bit of a stretch from a vision statement. Most of our money is still made by ink on paper, but we really position ourselves as like a strategic partner for brands and retailers to help them grow.
Yeah, it's an interesting place to be, right? Like, I mean, 16, well, the time that you've been on the business, I mean, like fundamental changes in the way we consume media, right? Like all of this stuff from going from print to digital and, a little bit back again.
And back again.
Yeah. Kind of like albums did.
Yeah.
Crazy. And then, and also people, right? Like when I first started, we referenced our little podcast that we're throwing because we were bored in COVID, but it was, Kenny and Phil and Matt Breach and Richard Pollock and like everybody had a name. Our biggest customers were them, right? Like I would phone Richard and I would phone Charles and that's who you were phoning. You're phoning Stuart Brown at Genuine Health and and now I phone Nestle, Procter and Gamble, Clorox, right? Like that's our customer base now.
Yeah.
And it's just so seeing that migration alone is like unbelievable to see it move from this like quite personal, business to, it's an industry. It's a major industry.
Yeah,
are you finding that's obviously where it had to go there. If it was going to grow, I remember we started going to Expo 22, 23 years ago when I started going, right? Because we were in the, we were the devil's side. We nobody wanted us at natural shows.
Totally.
Right. So, I mean, there's years where nobody would talk to me. Let's sit at booths and whatever. Well, I mean, I'd look at things and you learn stuff, but nobody wanted to talk to us. Right. But it was definitely a different time. And then the big companies came in, changed the game quite substantially. Are you finding it sort of going is there there's never going to be a migration back because the Nestle's, the Unilevers, et cetera, are in. They are in to stay. And I think they've realized you can make money in natural channel. You can make a lot of money in the natural channel. And it's the place to be. It's better for everybody. It's better for us. It's better for the planet. It's in general, it's better for everything. So good place to be. But are you finding did you feel that's the continuation of this? Or are you seeing anything? Because it's like Phil said, 16 years ago and today are almost in the same spot in a lot of ways. It's weird, right? Because you went from publishing when it wasn't that important. I find people have gone back to hardcover books. I don't know if magazines have gone up, but there's definitely a trend back to those things. We went from digital, like CDs. Now we're playing Spotify, obviously, but albums are big. Like, I'm just wondering if it's the same thing in our industry. Are you finding?
Yeah, probably a couple of questions there. The media side, let me riff on that one first. We've chased it too. So everywhere, basically our entire modeling business was, we're going to go wherever our customers are going. So first that was like geographic, and everybody uses the story of Vega. Everybody was best friends with Vega. But they're our neighbor and they were a good partner of ours. And I'm talking to Charles and I'm watching what he's doing with this explosive growth. And, first it was health food stores in Canada.
Right.
And then they said, listen, like we need to grow, we have a responsibility to grow and we need to access and help as many people as we can with our products. And so we need to take it to a broader channel. So they went food, drug, mass. So we said, hey, we should probably go food, drug, mass. If they're doing that, that probably makes sense for us. So, that was Sage with Loblaws. And then, 2 years later, they go, hey, we're going to take a crack at the US. And we're like, well, if you're going to the US, we should probably go to the US. So guess what we did? We went to the US and, then we're down in the US and they go, hey, guess what? We got to go food, drug, and mass in the US. And they go, well, we should probably go food, drug, and mass. So thank goodness for Charles and Vega and showing us the way, but that's, virtually the pattern that we took. So that was kind of that geographic expansion from a channel perspective, meaning media channel.
Right.
It was really interesting because everybody's dabbling with it and we've all got, young influencers in our life, et cetera. But I think what's coming around is every category is different. If you're buying an automobile, the internet's really good. Like I love sitting around on my couch and building a car online because I can build a car online and, responding to the marketing and watching videos and going, this is pretty good. Like I probably don't need a dealership. I'm pretty certain I could build my car, hit enter and do it no different than I would do on Amazon.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think what the journey is that they found in health and interestingly, I think all the major CPGs know this already, but they kind of forgot it in the process is, where is health spec'd in a traditional health? Where is it spec'd in the journey? And it's spec'd with a pharmacist and a doctor. It's not spec'd online, very outside of maybe very, very tight little area like new mothers, like baby, little like babycenter.com and, shared and blogging, that kind of thing in a very tight little space and time. But, outside of doing some probably very damaging research online, generally it's then doctor, pharmacist, and then consumption of some form of a product. And then, our industry goes through and go, no, we're going to be different than that. We're going to go and we're going to bypass the retailer. We're going to bypass the professional. We're going to bypass the authorities. And what we're going to sell all of our products by, using an influencer on Instagram. And amazingly, it didn't work. People are like, they don't decide what they're going to give their child when they're sick with a cold and flu, or they want to present, or they have low blood sugar, or name ailment. And amazingly, an influencer actually doesn't have that much impact on purchasing. So all of this investment over time, which I don't belittle anybody for, we did it too, but of like, how can we influence online, tended to fall short on results, not necessarily meaning that radio or television or traditional communications or print was any kind of a darling, but all of a sudden people went, wow, that actually worked and this doesn't. So we've just recently, the last 2-3 years, and not because, again, it's anything superior. We're just finding that a bunch of people are actually coming back to traditional because traditional works better. It's literally what it is. It's not that it is better. It just works better because people trust it. Health is a trusted thing. People don't put stuff in their body. They don't really research. It's an authority. So they go to trusted sources, and trusted sources are pharmacists, doctors, naturopaths, print literature. It is what it is.
Sorry, Phil. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No. Well, yeah. I guess the thing with influencers is there's just so much more work to be trusted, right? And most influencers aren't doing that work. So if it's for something visible, apparel, furniture, those sort of things, there's a pretty low bar, right? Like,
Totally.
looks great, it looks great, feels great, they look pretty happy, I'm good, right? But I don't know you from anybody, right? Like, like in the middle of the night, I'm not going to Instagram to see what's going on. I'm thinking about the things that I read, that I processed, right? That, educationally will help me figure out what my child needs, right? In the middle of the night, right? Like you
For
don't.
sure. And, it's like you said, too, it's just a barrier. It's about this health thing. So,
Yeah.
and even inside health, I can even create different layers. Like where you have sampling, et cetera, like food,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much you need to read about food if you're thinking about, our good buddy Ian Walker and Left Coast Naturals and, hippie snacks. And if an influencer comes on there and says like I freaking love these chips.
Yeah.
You know what? People might be like, that's a really good idea. Like that's different. When you're then saying something though, should I be taking 2,000 or 3,000 milligrams of vitamin D? I don't think an influencer is going to weigh a lot into that spectrum. And actually who does in all our research is, I'd love to say that it's, Alive and brand and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we all have it. And I always say, go to the focus group of one and then prove it wrong. What do you do, or what does your partner do, or what does your family member do when they have a question about health? They phone somebody. They are amazingly, sometimes it's them, but there's always that one gatekeeper of health in the bigger sphere. And it's like, a lot of times for us boys, it started with our moms. But then now, my mom goes to my wife, my stepmom, her mom goes to her sisters go to her. And that's the phone that rings all the time. It's like, hey, we're really down and out here. Like, what do you recommend? What brand? Forget even what product, like what brand?
Right.
So now all of a sudden she's in that position. And then what we're trying to figure out is, okay, well, that now you've already found out it's reference, recommendation, right? This is where it's going on this product side. And even what store are you shopping at, right? Like, where should I go? Where do you get that? So do you know where that's available? That's great. Thank you for that. Where do you get it? Mm-hmm. And the interesting part then is, where do they get their info? Where does that one person? That's what we try to have a play. That's like essentially our entire focus is, how do we find the super recommenders and make sure we're an important part of their lives? Not how are we a part of 80% of all North Americans' lives who are buying, health and wellness supplements, et cetera.
Right.
Yeah.
I find it's interesting because I sometimes wonder though how much it has to do with you got to do it this way. Like when you're talking, we talk about whether it's furniture, clothing, sneakers. An 18-year-old, a 15-year-old can go online and be influenced by whomever. Let's say it's a Jordan, Ryan Benn wearing a cool hat, whatever it is. But those are low impact, not massive detriment to my life. I don't have to worry about it. Those people under the 30 aren't into health the way that we would be as you get older. Because when you get older, you really start to have to think, it's not about eating healthy food or taking an extra supplement. What is it doing with the other meds you're on? Totally. There's a whole different set of things. I wonder if it's just the bubble we're in right now, because the 45 to 65-year-old who's probably got the latest, the health problems are coming now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to phone my I got a pharmacist buddy from London Drug still. I phone my pharmacist friends.
100%.
Why? Who else am I going to talk to? I can get to them easier, and they know they know more about medicine than doctors do. They do, right?
Yes, and they're the most trusted health professional in the world for a reason.
So go to them first, right? But what happens in 10 years? Like when my kids are 26 and 24, right? They're healthy kids. They like their health food, etc. They are influenced by certain things, how to eat, definitively by star athletes and mm-hmm. things like that. But do you think they're worried about hey, will vitamin D lower cholesterol? What is cholesterol?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I wonder if in 20 years, like, where are they going to go? Are they the group that can be influenced by influencers, or are they still going to be like us and phoning a pharmacist? Because I don't even think my kids have been in a pharmacy.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And it's, I guess that's the $1 million question. The only answer I can have for it is, and again, for all listeners, because they have no scope here, I'm, 42 years old. I've been at it for 16 years. And so, ironically, like to think of myself a little bit like a kid still. But 16 years ago, you imagine, I'm 26 years old. I'm taking over a dying magazine with the biggest commercial printer in the Pacific Northwest and a calendar company. And my friends are going
on death.
Like, and I'm still wearing cool hats and have a tattoo. And my friends are like, dude, what are you doing? Like, Like, you must be the biggest idiot. And I'm like, yeah, listen, it's probably 3 years out, but it's a great opportunity, and let's see what we can do. And then guess what I said 3 years later? I said, listen, guys, it's probably 3 years out, but let's see what we can do. And it's 16 years. And guess what I said in our strategic planning 2 weeks ago? Hey, listen, guys, like, I don't know, it might be 3 years out, but I've been saying it's going to be 3 years out 7 times over. Like, I don't know. I actually don't know. So for us, I mean, I belittle our own company, but Alive, a tremendous amount of what we put invested in is brand. We're almost omnipresent. We've got 15 million readers a month. It's it's pretty sizable now in terms of its scope.
That's
and
huge.
Alive.com, we gloss over it, but it's one of the largest health and wellness sites in the world. Great URL, the research, etc. So it's multifaceted media, and I think that's the key part now. Is Ryan Holmes taught me this going back a ways ago, and for the listeners, Ryan is Hootsuite. He's probably one of the most foremost social media thinkers, thought leaders, and he said, like, 10 years ago, when he was a little bit into his journey at Hootsuite, but he was getting close to a unicorn at that point. And his lecture to us at our Alive summit, the summary of it basically was, people who think of social media like a marketing tool don't get it. Social media is like your receptionist. You have to have it. You better answer it when somebody comes knocking at the door. And the expectation is quick turnaround. And it was this little bit of a wow moment for me, where it was like people were looking at it as the next thing. And he's like, you're already too late. It's not the next thing. It is just one of the things now. You have to have social media. You have to talk to your audience there. You have to deal with it. You have to have a website. You have to have a cell phone. You have to have
table stakes, right?
And you have to have marketing.
Yeah.
And it needs to become a marketing mix. But his main statement then was, people who said my social media strategy, he's like, there is no such thing as a social media strategy. There is a marketing strategy of which you have social media tactics.
Exactly.
It's really interesting. And he really whittled it down.
But at that time, that was a little revolutionary, because I remember at that time, everybody was looking at it as marketing. Like, not a marketing tool, not a function of, not a,
like, little
not a
companies actually
of.
build an entire, they're attempting to build an entire business based on
Instagram.
Social media, and you kind of go like, guys, come on, like, it
doesn't work quite like that, right?
No.
It's not that.
No.
Like,
now, ironically, there are, fast forward all the way through, and there actually are businesses that are built on social media now.
For sure.
Agreed.
But that's because we now have an ability to have a social media shopping cart, right? So you have an Instacart. You can have a full cycle of business.
You can do it all. 10 years ago, could you buy on Instagram?
No.
Did you even see anything on Instagram from sponsored people?
10 years ago, did you buy on Amazon, basically? Like, you were like, that was a rare occurrence, right? Like, I didn't.
I didn't.
No. So it was a real delinkage at that point. And now people really, it's just evolved, and now there's a place for all of it. And nothing makes me happier than when Facebook phones up and they take an ad in Alive because they want to drive people to Facebook.
How cool is that, eh?
So,
that's awesome.
So what's your, like, because I think this part for our listeners is probably a real curiosity, right? Because you've got a mix of online and print. Like, what, without giving away trade secrets, but what's your mix like? Because I'm so curious. Like, the misconception is that print is dead and everyone's gone online, but it's really not true, is it?
No, and I'd say, like, I'm pretty open, so we'll get pretty much close to every trade secret that we have. But let's take for granted that most of our advertisers are the big boys. They're actually the big CPGs. So they're still under brands like Garden of Life and Natural Factors, who's independent, of course. But the vast majority of Garden of Life is Nestle and Danone and Vega, and like it or now just changed. But so that's kind of the journey we're on. We are very strategic partners of all of those major CPGs. Very strategic. Like, we would be one of their single largest spends for not Nestle, but for Garden of Life. And they are very smart people. So they're doing it for a reason. Ironically, our journey with these customers generally went, small independent. Let's use Vega again. Vega, great advertiser. Sells, not as good of advertiser. Goes into CPG world. CPG goes, no, we don't do it this way. We do it this way. So we're not going to do it. We're not going to advertise. Or if we do, we're going to do the bare line minimum. Follow it through 6 years later, they go, wow, this was actually hyper effective. biggest advertisers. So I mean, all you have to do is open our mag. That's why it's not really a trade secret. You open it up and you see who's in there and you go, wow, oh, that's really interesting. So these big boys are actually the ones who, what's happened is the small boys are trail. And this is classic retail too, right? Like you guys will know this too, right? Health food stores constantly chasing, Loblaws.
Right.
Meanwhile, Loblaws is actually going, well, what are we trying to do? We're actually trying to create a store within a store to replicate a health food store. Meanwhile, the health food store is trying to say, well, we want to become like Loblaws, and Loblaws is sitting here going, this is crazy. Like you guys have it all. You have community, you have relationships, you have margin, you've got novelty, you can innovate products, you can launch.
Yeah.
And health food stores are like, that's not what I need to be. I need to be low cost and convenient.
Yeah.
And you go, gosh, it's crazy. So I talk to retail a lot about, playing to your strengths. So ironically, the little manufacturers, little in comparison to the big CPGs, guess what they're doing? They're like 5 years behind the cycle. And the big CPG is heavy in print. And the little guys are like, no, we're going to spend all our money online and we're going to create our own communities and we're going to do our own content strategy. And people are going to love to come to my Instagram and I'm going to spend $300,000 a year building Instagram content and I'm going to get 17 people like it. And then they'll realize that was a bad idea and probably look at an integrated media approach. And, it's not meant to sell or disseminate. I think there's a place for everything, but that's the cycle we've kind of seen. And most people, I mean, you could almost just open up in a live magazine from, one a year for the last 6 years and that strategy would become apparent.
So with the big guys, is it just like, cause you like Alive Online, for example, has some really cool articles. So like with the big guys, like a Unilever, for example, is it just advertising or how, like, what does the partnership you look like, right? Because like we have a mix of like people that are, big and small. And so maybe the big people are going, guys, don't you get it? We do this with Alive. But I'm just wondering, like, because I think that would also help, kind of blow this up a little so people understand. Like, so if Unilever were to do a partnership with you, is it just about running ads in magazines or is there more to it? Like, do they build their content strategy? Do they kind of share that with you? Do you help them build content?
Sure.
All those sort of things.
Yeah. So again, because I don't really think there's many competitors left for us. There's competitors for every component of what we do, but from the perspective of partner, it's a little bit different. We're in a blessed place with that. So I don't really mind sharing it all. So a very, very bad analogy, a very good analogy, but a bad example is McDonald's. When you go through a drive-through for McDonald's and you go, I'm going to get a Big Mac meal. And you go, okay, you're going to get a Big Mac meal. And they're like, what size fries, what kind of burger do you want? What kind of soda do you want? You get there at the very end. When you pull up to the drive-through, it's really hard for you to go, actually, I'm curious, what does each one of those cost? And they're like, no, your meal is $8.99. If you want to buy them individually, they're going to be $14. And so these things are bundled up into this package. And we all know that they make all their money on the soda because the soda costs them 10 cents and that's lumped in and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, they've lumped it all together because they said, we want you to have the full meal experience, pun intended, right? And Alive is ultimately not that much different. And then now to tell you what our levers are, like what are our fries, burger, and soda is, we kind of have 7 things and we bundle them all in. And generally, most of the big customers now want all 7. They want to come to you and say, I want 1 or 2 of them. And we say, you don't get 1 or 2. Simple. It was a really hard lesson for us to learn, was to say, we're actually not going to sell you just 1 or 2 because they're not going to work. It only works when you put them all together. We will sell you only 1 or 2, but it's going to be so exorbitantly expensive. You're going to go, that makes no sense. So the buckets for us are print media, consumer insights, online display advertising, direct to consumer. And then when we get, so those are always bundled together for sure. Then we start to go on the print media and on the online channel specific. So do you want mass and independent or one of those two? That's okay. If they're only one channel, the other, that's all right. But generally most people are omni-channel now. So they're going with everything. And then the real magic for us is when they start going, well, what are we going to do for our own content on our website? We're looking at a direct to consumer strategy. The biggest challenge most of the brands face is that independent, well thought content, no matter whether the content is online, videos, webinars, education, or just plain old marketing. They don't have it. So probably now our fastest growing by far, and I'm not afraid to say, for the last 3 years, and is now flirting with 40% of our entire business, is custom publishing stuff we do for the major CPGs that you don't even see our brand on.
Wow.
Nothing. So you'll just see a tiny little thing that's like published by a lot of publishing. So like as an example, I think I hope they're going to be totally okay with it. We just published the last book for Ancient Nutrition. So Jordan and Josh Axe, here's all of their writing, breakout phone call, couple of things. We took it all. We made an 84-page book out of it, designed it, built it, branded it, printed it, shipped them 200,000 copies. They're giving those away for gift with purchase for customers.
Wow.
So that's it, and it was all our content. I shouldn't say all our content. It was actually a lot of their content, but it's our
assuming,
but it's your writers, it's your
writing, you're putting it together, packaging it in a way that I'm going to be interested as a consumer to look at it, etc.
Yeah. So unbranded by us. And we do, everything from like brochures, educational videos.
Oh, you really busted out, eh? That's
it's a funny thing, right? Because like I have clients on the B2B side, right? And on the B2B side, you're used to this, right? Like you're used to, like I've worked in biometrics and, all those sort of things. And so you get people who show up and do full service. They do white papers, they do, like case studies and all that kind of stuff. But I never thought of the CPG world in the same sort of context. But it actually makes sense to me. It's actually kind of genius, really.
It's actually
big boys, the big boys, right? And if you think about it, like, giving you examples without telling you who, but Europharma does a magazine. Garden of Life does a magazine. Ancient Nutrition used to and probably will do a magazine again. I'm probably missing more in the mix, but you're getting the idea. Right. Like, they're doing major branded consumer. And if you think about it, like BMW, Air Canada, this is a very common thread of, there's jewelry stores who literally do their own magazines. There's, Hugo Boss magazine. There's, you name it, that are, info mags. And it's the preeminent brands of almost anything. Like I love my, BMW magazine that shows up quarterly, or my Air Canada magazine that shows up. And, we're trying to help brands to get to that level of echelon where people are excited actually about getting their Garden of Life magazine show up, instead of, oh, I got a Garden of Life flyer show up. I'm flyer. I'm a flyer, so like, and our argument is, you guys, for such a small difference, we can take that from, a 10% increase in your spend can take it from meh to, holy, this is really substantial. This is like really awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of cool. I hadn't thought of it like that, but it's pretty brilliant. It's kind of awesome.
So we're doing that, and then that embeds us into strategy, right? So then we do like our live summit, and so, a lot of the stuff I do now is travel around and talk to these guys in their strategic planning sessions. So we do everything from our conversations with the executives at a lot of these CPGs are, here's the products we're thinking about launching. What are your thoughts? Here's our channel strategy. What are your thoughts? Because, we have guys, scope, obviously we know more about the consumers than any brand does, for sure, because we're bigger than any brand. It sounds crazy, but we're bigger than Nestle in health food, right? Like we know the health food consumer as well as anybody. Yeah. And, 5,000 stores buy our magazines now. 5,000 stores buy the magazine. So when you think about the amount of aggregate data that we're pulling in on which stores are just every single retailer, how many are they buying? When do they do? How do they do? All the phone calls, all the lectures, all the consumer insights that we're getting. Then we deal with all the manufacturers too. And when you aggregate pretty much every retailer who's in this channel, most consumers in the channel, and pretty much every single manufacturer in the channel, we end up becoming this funny little cog in the wheel. And I mean, guys, all things in scope, right? This is a small business. We're 35 employees, but it's fascinating that we end up having all of these relationships and these interactions. So a brand launches and they go, we're the Kenny Vanucci connector now, right? It's that one that got me introduced to you, Ken. Like we've got 500 of those now. So if somebody's like, I got to get into Fresh Time Markets, they're like, what do? We have this great product and we want to advertise and we're doing really well, but I got to get into Fresh Time Markets in the US. How do I get to them? They phone Alive and we go, we'll make one phone call for you.
Yeah.
And we'll probably get you to the top of the list. And a guy like Kenny answers the phone and goes, hey, Ryan, that's awesome for sure. Yeah. Tell me about him. Yeah. Give him my email. It's okay. Yeah. If you think they're good, I'll take a look. Let me take a look. And so we play
That's
this
kinda cool.
little role, funny little, almost like incubator kind of role for these
But
brands.
there's not many
But it's
people
really
in this
ironic, right?
spot.
Because the thing that we all wanted the internet to do is getting done old school.
That's what I'm
You know-
finding. When I listen to the whole
like
thing,
all of the data
the
that
tie-in to me
we
is the
thought
same.
the internet's going to give us everything, right?
all
Like
the
Yeah.
shit
like
we're gonna
you know,
grab, and you're getting
we're
it all
like
old school
yeah,
still.
yeah.
I
but
mean,
it's
a
but
mix
it's
up,
Yeah.
but
actually, and
the
I
old
love it.
school
Like
didn't leave. I think
love
this
it.
is
Yeah, yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, my biggest concern for the industry, this is a great full circle conversation, because
Yeah.
it was the second part of the question you asked earlier, Kenny, that, you know, where's the whole thing going?
Yeah.
I really only have one concern, because you were like, you know, it's all gone CPG, but is there a place for it? That was that question that we
It
never
is.
got to.
Is there a place for small guys both sides,
There
the vendor
really
side
is.
and the retail side?
My concern is that big business, at no intentional fault of their own, but big business can potentially crush our industry. And what I mean by that, and this is not big bad cop, this is not people that come out and crush us like they're intentionally doing it. It's just that the big CPG is working with big retail, and they have a way of taking product to market.
Mhm.
Yes.
But the one thing that gets lost in in my feeling, food chain, it's what made food bad today. It's all the same. Like,
Right.
shreddies are still shreddies. It's still the same shit in the same box on the same shelf,
Yeah.
because retailers are like, we don't know what else to do. CPG is having a really hard time. And to get into that like mass scale, particularly in the US, but to get to that mass scale, you know, you gotta go through independent, innovation, growth, scale, right? And then all of a sudden you get big enough that,
But that doesn't
you know,
happen. That can't happen with big guys because they're already
doesn't.
up there. The whole steps are all gone.
So if you don't have
Yeah.
the innovative retailers supporting innovative product introductions, we're just going to go the exact same way as CPG before, which will be, you have 4 different proteins on the shelf, you have 3 different vitamin C's, and the biggest wins, and that's the end of it. But when you have this like vibrant retail network, that retail network allows for innovation because they can educate. But, you know, listen, like Loblaws, they can't educate. They can't educate on anything.
They're also not innovative. They're not built for it. The buyers don't think that way. The buyers of today in any of the majors are, you know, sorry, friends, are become useless. Nobody takes chances unless there's a bucket of money attached
but
to
it's
it.
also
Nobody's looking.
but it's the
trying.
model, right? Like they also can't afford to take chances. Like
No.
when you have you know kind of 20 SKUs that make up all of the volume on your shelf, what chances can you take exactly, right? Like you're looking, you know, every year margins get a little bit thinner. Do you know what I mean? Like penny profit gets a bit tougher. So these guys are going.
But it's not going to come from the big guys, though.
Like
that's
it's
the
cool
problem.
that I'm a buyer and I own $100 million, $150 million in the category, but I'm scared to death that I'm not going to get the profit number, that someone's going to knock at my door and go, where the fuck is the other $5 million you owe me, right?
100%. So my only, you know, like caution for industry, and I believe that, you know, economics wins over all the time, and so I believe that innovation will stay and small will always have a place, and I believe that because people desire it and therefore it'll be there. But my concern is just the awareness, that I try to heighten people's ultimate awareness and go, guys, just remember, like there's a really great case study right now. Amazon bought Whole Foods because Whole Foods was awesome, great. Like I have no problem with that. Some people have a problem with that. I'm you know, listen, I'm good. I like, that is how business works. Vega got sold because it was successful. That is awesome. If more people can have Vega because of that, that is awesome. These are all good things. That's the journey we want to take. We just want to make sure that a new Vega starts and 15 years later, that happens again.
Right.
So when I saw Amazon buy Whole Foods, this is fantastic. But the problem is Whole Foods is starting to become Amazon. Exactly. And now all of a sudden, what Whole Foods launched our industry effectively, like that,
literally,
that retailer, that strength of that retailer and that innovation was like, wait a second, that paved the way for successful independent retail, whether it was Sprouts or Fresh Time or Capers or whatever. Like, it all came out of that. And then now all of a sudden, exactly what made this entire industry successful is migrating towards what they bought in the first place. Like, Amazon bought it because they were amazing and are turning it into Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's inevitable, right? And I think that's ultimately where my worry goes, is that you're going to have 6 retailers and 6 CPG companies, and that's 90% of our business.
Is it?
And you know what you get with that? Fuck all. You
You
get
get
a
nothing.
bunch of fucking humdrum, boring products, no innovation. You get box changes, maybe a color change, size change. I'll hold your price, but I'll take 50 grams off next year. Like, it's boring as shit.
But it's I think so. The rare times I think that Kenny and I disagree, but I disagree because I think you can definitely see that happening, but I also see the flip side of it is, like, even on the show, we've heard people on brands that have come on and said, look, the economics don't work. Like, I'm a little brand. I really want to be in Loblaws. I'm not going to Loblaws because there's no world in no circumstances the economics going to work for me.
Is that them telling us, Phil, or us telling them?
It's both, right? But I think that also, like, you know, to what Ryan hopes is going to happen is I think this cycle is going to continue because you've got little brands that need little places to go, right? Like, we've met up like easily 100 brands on the show that are like that, and they need places to go, and the retailers that they go to need those brands, right? So I think
you just need to have the retailers there to go to. The problem you're having, though, is when 80% of our food distribution in the country is 3 guys, 4 guys, let's say it's Metro, 5, Metro, Walmart, Loblaws, Sobeys, and let's say Overweighted Food Group. That's it. I mean, honestly, that's 89% of the food distribution in the country, right? If those guys don't take it, it's very difficult unless you can change your world. See, Ryan's a phenomenal cook, right? He's a chef too. He loves food like me. Like, he's another freak. Like, that's all we talk about. We love food. I mean, honestly, we could eat all day, every day.
Oh, let's talk food. I love food. Let's forget this heavy topic. Let's talk food. Yeah,
so I got all excited because you've already probably seen it. I know, Phil. So I started watching. I don't know why I did it there. I started watching Chef Table.
Oh, so
it's not even new, right? It's been out for a couple of years.
Yeah,
There's the one episode, and I can't remember his name. Is Dan Barber? That's a guess. Because Phil, I did the other day. I came up the name.
Yeah, he gave me this. Anyway, like, this guy, Scott Fitzwilliam. I was like, there's no Scott's William. Like, what?
Go find the episode I'm talking about. That fucking Dan guy, whatever his name is. Anyway, he's the guy that had his grandmother owned the farm or something to that effect. And what his basic conclusion, sort of what you just said, is what happened to, like, food, for example. Food became all about commodity and about getting as much out as humanly possible. So you went away from knowing who the farmer of the pigs were.
Correct.
And knowing how that farmer raised their pigs to just being from Maple Leaf or Tyson or whomever. Like, you went from, and what happened is all the cool food that they fed the pigs is gone. And now it's just shit that they're feeding the pigs today. And you wonder why the meat's not the right color, or it doesn't taste like anything anymore. And to me, it's funny because I got all hyperactive this week on this, right? Because I told Phil, so I'm going online trying to find the 100-mile diet, right? But I'm not looking for the diet. I'm thinking, if I type in 100-mile diet Vancouver, because we've been talking about this for 10 years, I'm going to get all the retailers that I should go to. Like, the butchers are going to come up, the produce guys. Good luck.
Oh, yeah, no.
Good luck.
No, so, it's the way it should be. And I believe in that. And I do, I'm somewhere between the two. I actually am glass half full. I believe that consumers are becoming enlightened. And, this is interesting. Like, you want to talk about, generationally, like you just self-admittedly there, Kenny, said you have, a couple kids in the 20s.
Oh, absolutely. I'm way older than both of you.
They're getting pretty enlightened, right? They're getting pretty enlightened. And these kids are getting pretty smart, and they're starting to see through some of this stuff and saying,
absolutely,
no, you know what? I'm going to farmers markets. Like, they're as successful as they've ever been. And, we're looking at, we're going to buy our fruit and vegetables from, a community supported agriculture. And, so there's definitely that awareness coming in, and I'm hopeful that the understanding of it, my big wish, I guess, would be, is where I was starting with all of this, is that the big boys on both retail and manufacturer actually were aware enough, or the decisions came from people aware enough, that they actually said, no, we need to actually invest in independent retail. That's very important for us still as Nestle, to make sure that we really support independent retail, because that's actually good for our business.
Right.
Although 90% of our volume comes through 5 retailers in Canada, we have to actually really support the other 10%, or else we're never going to be able to launch a product again. and there's going to be no brands to buy because they won't have been able to launch.
Yeah.
That's what my hope is.
So, and I think my fear is, that's why I went back to it. I do think it's going to be 6 CPG, 6 retailers. Let's say that happens.
Yeah.
And doing 90%. There's still 10% though. And that's the 10% that hopefully that 3 of us, as you get a little older, you get a little more affluent, etc., we'll support that. Because if that dies, then it is dead. It's going to be a shitty system. But if you start thinking about it, because I'm older than both of you, my age group is the one that is now starting to think, you know what, as cool as it was walking these big stores 5-10 years ago, and this big company and all this buying and consolidation was really cool to watch. It's not really good for anything at the end of the day. It's good for a lot of things, but you know what? It's really not that good for a lot of things.
Yeah,
we're losing a lot of, there's competition's gone to shit. Selection's gone to shit, to what we're all saying now, right? So my age group is now thinking, you know what? I don't know if I like this game as much as I thought I did. I'll support it for some parts because I got no choice. I got to get some stuff. It's easy peasy, but I'm going to start hunting for different people. I'm going to go find the cool guy again.
It's funny. It's little things like, and I love that hunt. And I mean, you guys are retail, and I love going into great grocery stores. Like nothing's better. Anywhere in the world, I do a ton of travel.
I
love talked about that earlier, but vacation travel, right? Food and vacation. I mean, that's my
grocery stores.
And like, I love going in. Like first thing I do, we land in Budapest. I'm like, let's go to a grocery store because you can learn about an entire
100%
civilization by just going to see what's on the shelf, who is there, and what do they buy. I love it. I just love it.
And then what's funky about the region, right? Like, so things that you would buy for, cheap, and then you get there and you're like, what the hell? How expensive is this? What's on cheap? Like, what's everybody throwing in their cart, right? And all of a sudden,
it's funny stuff.
Like, you go to different take on culture, right? Like,
exactly.
You go to France and you're like, tomatoes are free, but a head of lettuce was like €6, and you're like, what?
Yeah, and
I don't understand that. Right? It's just like, and there's got to be a good reason, but it's funny. It's like it's just different, and you're like, this is really interesting. Why is that?
They buy dairy as close to the expiry date as you possibly can, right? Like it's such a weird thing. Like yogurt, they actually buy like here you buy it with the longest possible expiry you can get. For them, they buy it as close to the expiry as. Like, there's no such thing as short dated.
And how tricked out my kids were when they got to Europe and eggs were on the shelf.
I was just going to come
unrefrigerated, right?
And they're thinking,
what the heck?
My kids are like, you can't buy that. You're going to die.
Yeah, you're going to die.
Yeah. Salmonella, you're thinking, salmonella guys, they don't wash them. That's why they can sit there. They let nature just do her thing. It's all good.
Yeah, you crack them open. They're like, there's something wrong with these. These are glowing. You're like, no. Actually, real eggs are supposed to.
This is called a real egg.
Eggs are supposed to look like this.
Yeah. So I digress. But hey, I mean, I guess that's what the purpose of the podcast was to digress. So.
But we always digress. So ultimately, we're going to end up on food. And because I know you're a foodie. See, like that's for us, like I shit you not, we could talk food all day. Eat food all day. I just love food. Everything.
And it is nice because, Alive got me into it. Essentially, Alive was the one where, I got into it. I lost 25 pounds over time because you're like, you start to live it. And literally Alive worked for me. It was no pun intended. Like, it's not because I was like, I got to live the brand. I'm going to be some fit guy for the industry. I was just like, listen, I'm 26 and I'm out of shape. And I'm like, I'm running this health brand and I'm reading Alive and I have this resource that's telling me how to do everything. And I'm like, well, maybe I should, do some of it. And I did. And then, that was like weight and physical and strength. And then all of a sudden it went to, preaching about organic and 100-mile diets. And I'm like, well, maybe I should, try growing some vegetables in my backyard. And I happened to live in Ladner then. I'm like, well, that went really well. And then I was like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? And I started cooking. And luckily, as president of Alive, I had a reasonable travel and expense account. So that actually enabled me to eat some good food at some nice places and entertain people. And I just happen to be passionate about food and love eating and drinking. So I'm like, this is good. And I'm like, my standards went up because I had these experiences and I said, I'm gonna start making food that way myself. And that was it. That was the whole journey. So people ask all the time, they're like, how did you become the chef? And I was like, where were you taught? And I was like, well, until 5 years ago, it was just all self-taught. Like it was just me experiencing it and dissecting it and going, I'd love to eat that at home more often. So I have to learn how to be a good cook so I can eat good food. And that was it.
That's what television's for. How many cooking shows do you watch? I love watching these guys.
Everyone.
I love watching them. You know why?
You know what I stopped doing though? I stopped watching them after 10:30 at night. Because otherwise, like I'm in bed, I'm watching it. The next thing you know, I'm in the kitchen trying to figuring out what do I have that I can.
Well, you should enter into my world where all of a sudden it's 10:30 at night, you're watching a food show and you just smoked a doob, and then you're really eating food.
Oh
and
no,
then
yeah. And then you're like, oh my god, I need.
Yeah, this is like a recipe for disaster. So
That's a
both
whole
of those
different
two
world.
things, both of those
love
things
it.
can't happen at 10:30 at night anymore in my
I
world.
love it. I love doing chopped at about 11:30 midnight.
Right?
Going in the fridge. Okay, what am I going to do?
That's so funny. Well, as I'm waiting for this to over, I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to have fresh prep, which, by the way, I think is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And which is so funny for a chef and a foodie, but with a family, it's so fun to get there, and everybody participates in the cooking, and the quality of the food's really good. But I'm going to head down there, and I'm going to watch the Witcher with my
Oh, that's awesome! Season 1 or season 2?
We're nearing the end of season 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just starting season 2, so
yeah.
But
it's just
episodes into season 1.
Yeah. So one other thing, this is total divergent as well. I've been on, I've been in this place where over Christmas I bought a sustainable bag, right? Because I realized, everything I buy, I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to be more green. Yeah. I'm recycling. I'm reducing my plastic footprint. But when I buy backpacks or bags, it's made of crap, and if I use it for a couple of years and throw it out, now it sits in a landfill. So I bought a paper-based bag, and I was telling Kenny this, that I started on this journey going, you know what? I'm in this place where I don't really need anything. So what I should do is, now is a really good time to try and figure out, how do I be better, right? So if I buy a shirt, how do I buy something that's sustainable, something that's, not harmful to the, isn't going to sit in a landfill? And I was complaining the other day that it's fucking difficult. All I've been able to do since November is buy a pair of socks. And even then, I'm not really sure whether I didn't do any harm. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
It's a fucking.
That's why we got onto the fucking
mess. But what where I was going with it
is a fucking fuck. That's what makes it hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. And Alive actually has a sustainable section, which is kind of cool. It actually touches on some of the things. Kenny was having the same frustration around finding locally sourced foods and being able to figure out where shit comes from. And then I'm in the same boat where I literally would like to buy a long sleeve shirt, except I can't figure out if I buy one from Patagonia and I have it shipped to me, I think I've just fucked up the carbon footprint. You know what I mean? Everything's I don't understand.
Totally. And we can do a better job of that. The problem is, we tend to write to follow the dollars a bit, and that doesn't mean we do no advertising. Just for the record, none, zero. And anybody who thinks we do, when they open it up, you'll see it. It's we do not play that game, because we think that's a recipe for death, short-term win, recipe for death. If people start going, I don't trust Alive because it is writing whatever Nest tells them to write, then we're done. So, but we still have sustainability, lifestyle, fitness. But guess what? I mean, sustainability, 5% revenue, 15% content. Fitness, 0% revenue, 15% content. Food, 40% content, 5% revenue.
Right.
Health, 90% revenue, 40% content. So we have to maintain that element of it. But a big win for us, and I'm thanks for the opportunity to share this story, because it was a real inspiration for me. One of Charles' Lyric Gross investing companies is a company called Tentry. And it's led by this really young, dynamic, fantastic guy, Derek Emsley. Yeah. And Derek came to me, and we got to know each other through YPO and through Charles, and he's saying listen, you, again, Alive, when I say you guys are this audience as well as anybody. So it's so cool that you just said, I'm trying to think of long sleeve shirts and socks. And here Derek's coming to us going, his company's way bigger than ours, but he's going, we got to go to the US. We don't know that market. We're selling a ton of sustainability products, but how do we tell our story? How do we triple our size, et cetera, which is really awesome. And in doing that, him coming to me and us sitting and having coffee at Lift Coffee in Whistler, and I'll never forget it. I'm sitting here going, guys, we do, well, I don't know in tonnage, but, give you some scope. We're doing 14 semi trucks of paper a month. That's what we're talking. And that's to the printers And then you've got, I don't even know what the equivalent is, but when you think about this and you break it down, UPS and CanPower, et cetera, like you're talking thousands of trucks going out.
Yeah.
You're like, wow. So this is really interesting. We're a sustainability, health and wellness magazine that, paper's not that bad, but the transportation, ironically, is probably worse.
The carbon footprint on the transport is ridiculous.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And we're like, this is, and here I am giving this advice on this guy's coming to me on how to grow and build a sustainability brand. And I'm like, hold on a second. Like, can we do something together? And that literally birthed our thing. So we are now the biggest, this is a fact, the biggest magazine in the world that's carbon neutral. So we went to him and we said, he's trying to get help for growth. And I go, tell you what, you guys have this model. They're the largest tree planter in the world now. And they planted, 10 trees for every item bought.
Right.
I have no idea, but, call it $60 million in revenue and layer that times how many trees does that mean? And it's a ton. So they actually have created this enormous tree planting audit company in the background because they were spending so much money on tree planting, call it a few million on tree planting, that they're like, we got to make sure we're actually living this through. So they actually created like an independent audit body. It's really interesting stuff, but for those consumers interested, go take a look at Tentree and it's called Veritree. And
I love it. So I love it. Like Tentree is one of the ones that I live on because I think they're the closest to.
They're the best, right?
Yeah.
So we said to him, I go, Derek, like theoretically, what if we just do this? What about if we help you guys to market yourselves and grow your market and grow in the US? And what about if you help us to become carbon neutral? And he's like, that sounds pretty good. So they're experts at it. So we had them in and we said, what would it take? Like, this is how many mags we print. This is how many pages essentially we print. This is how many trees it translates to. This is what our carbon emissions are. We know every detail of every place we're going to. So basically we said on one big spreadsheet, here's our bad cop. This is how much carbon we use in transportation. This is how many trees.
You need 18 million trees to offset your, that's kind of
so
cool.
We're doing 1.9 million trees.
Okay.
You weren't far off with a zero. 1.9 million trees planted this year at about 10 cents a tree USD, something like that. It gives you some scope. $200,000 this cost us to become carbon neutral, straight hard cost to the business. But then we sold them $200,000 in advertising and we said, let's call it even.
It's a wash.
So basically what we ended up doing was free advertising for them so that they can grow their market.
Yeah.
They made us carbon neutral.
Yeah.
Now all of a
That's
sudden,
fantastic.
Isn't that really cool?
That's
and now
awesome.
That's really cool.
We're finally able to go in and apply as a triple bottom line business because we actually fit the criteria. And it's really cool. So
For a publisher, not bad.
Yeah, as a publisher. And that's a really neat thing. So we're super excited about it. And this just literally, we started announcing this in like November.
Oh, that's so cool.
I think that's awesome.
Year to put together.
I think that's awesome.
I mean, this has been, the whole year of 2022, the whole 13 days. Phil and I have been on this every day, just yapping. And again, I think it's more because sort of, Ryan, you know what it is? You've done something though. Like you actually have contributed to it. And I think what we're all what Phil and I were talking about is we do things, but it's so small for so big. Like you want to make a real difference.
Totally.
You know what I mean? As opposed to this bullshit, right? I put a can into recycling, which is great. Yay team. But
that's like social media, right? That's table stakes.
Whatever.
So
and it's an easy thing to say. I said this all the time. I used to love talking to people. Listeners can't see this, but bunny ears, right? Like I used to love talking to rich people who said money doesn't matter. Like I would just roll my eyes and be like, "You're such a dick."
You give me your money.
Home, and I'm trying to figure out how to pay.
I'll give you my money, and then let's just have that chat.
Right? But the reality is, whether it's money or stage of life or these things, and you talked a little bit about, Phil, where you're like, eventually you get to a point where you go, and I'm in this point in my business career where I actually don't need my job. Like if my employers don't want me to work for them, I'm fairly certain 17 other people do. So, that's a blessing, and that's not meant as arrogant or anything else. It's just the stage of life you get to where, I've worked hard. I've got to this situation and that's the place. But what it's brought me is a sense of freedom to say, you know what, when I wake up every day, I actually can be 100% authentic. If I go, you know what, this is the way we're going to do it, because I don't want to run a magazine that talks about sustainability that isn't sustainable. Yeah. But I don't want to do that anymore. So we're not going to do that. Yeah. And then the decision's done, and not everybody is empowered to make those kind of decisions. And that is not then to point a finger. Those are the people. put your can in the recycling, do your part, and do your very best. But the very best for me now is not recycling. The very best for me is actually doing something bigger and better.
Right.
Actually changing society, because we have this influence, and I feel a moral responsibility to do more than preach.
Yeah. It's a freeing feeling. Kenny and I have talked about that too, as we're both kind of in the same boat where
Well, we're going to take this one offline, the three of us. I got an idea. There's got to be something we can do about that other thing we were talking about with the food thing.
Love it.
We'll talk. We got to talk. I got to
You guys should take me offline. I mean, I thought I had 45 minutes, and I'm just, if I just keep talking without allowing you guys to interrupt, I figure I can take this thing for 2 hours.
Listen, so let's do this. So let's shut down the listener portion, because I actually do want to talk to you about this. I think I'm firing all the same cylinders Kenny is. So, and then at some point we can always bring you back on and enlighten the listener.
Yeah.
But guys, thanks for listening. We'll put Ryan Benn's contacts and live and all of that stuff in the episode notes, and then
LinkedIn a good way to get a hold of you if someone wants to talk to you. Like, what's the best way?
100%. Yeah, actually, LinkedIn's fantastic. I wasn't always the biggest fan, but I love using it now, and I'm also a really available guy. So you can put up my direct email. I'm good. I love it.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.